Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on Fantasy Football Scout. We are back talking drafts and I'm joined by David today. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. It's great to be finally doing this. To be honest, we've had so much of pre-season where it's been if buts and maybes, and we didn't have the fixtures, and then the fixtures came out and we started putting teams together. But without any pre-season games, you don't really know what you're looking at. And yeah, now that we're getting closer and closer to the season, finally starting to think about a proper draft. It kind of now it feels like fantasy football's back, and yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, and only a couple of weeks now till we have to have this locked in. I'm sure they're going to change a little bit over the course of those 2 weeks as well, with new transfers like Chelsea signing every player under the sun. And I should just quickly say, because we've had this issue a little bit on the last few draft videos, we're recording this on Friday. It's not going to go out till Sunday. So if there's any major transfers, any new injuries, then obviously we won't be able to cover them. I know Ferguson, for example, his injury came out after we did the draft with Gianni. So those kind of things happen. It's to be expected, but we have to get these recorded in advance at certain times. So just to give you a little caveat before we start. But yeah, let's just jump straight into it, I think. Let's get the team up. Now, there's a few things that jump out at me straight away. Which maybe we'll come to in a second, which is the forward line, as you might imagine. But you have done something I don't think any other people have done so far on these draft videos, at least that we've done on Scout, which is having Greenwood already in. So let's actually just start with him before we talk about the defence. Do you think that's something you're gonna go along with? Like, you've just edited my Man United article, so we should do a bit of a plug for that. That will be out by the time this video goes out. And Greenwood's underlying stats are not great, but obviously he's quite a young player. Room to improve potentially. Do you just think he's too good to turn down at 7.5?
Yeah, I think the main reason that he's there on the bench is purely price. So when I did my first draft, I had a United. This was before fixtures, I should say. The United double up I had was Rashford and Martial, who I actually, on balance, I think they're possibly the two best players that United have from a points potential perspective for this season, which probably sounds a little bit of a crazy thing to say because Fernandez is obviously, a big player in everybody's thoughts. You've just mentioned I've just edited your United article, which you've referenced that, Fernandez can't sustain that level of points returns over a whole season, surely. Like, he'll still have a good season. But for me, paying 10.5 for Fernandez when I could have had Rashford for 9.5, I'd rather have Rashford, to be perfectly honest, because he's going to score more goals and his assist potential is actually not bad. He creates chances that are bigger than Fernandes because of his advanced positioning. So I want someone in the front three at Man United. But of course, with the fixtures, it's really difficult to justify having a 9.5 midfielder in your team who's not going to play game week one. I'm hoping I'm going to have Rashford at some point this season, but obviously we have to pay attention to the fact that actually he's an injury out for England. So he may not even start game week two. So I'm keeping my eye on that. Martial obviously is the same problem in terms of he's a great price for the season, but do I want him in my game week one team? Probably not. We're going to come on to the forward line. Having Kane means I can get to him quite easily. A lot of people are talking about the fact that they want Man City players for game week three. I don't really want to necessarily have to be also thinking about Man United players as well. So if I look at Man United and Man City, what's the best way that I can guarantee I've got one of their players in for when I need them without having to make transfers, without having to give up loads and loads of money that's not getting spent on my game week one lineup? Then Greenwood is kind of the best option from a value perspective. I completely agree, though, that there's a lot of underlying numbers that could concern you. So, you've done an article on United. I did one earlier in the summer without fixtures. So definitely read Andy's now that we've got fixtures. But I was just looking mostly at the data, and what I was finding was that Greenwood didn't have a single big chance at all during Project Restart, and that's even when he's playing with Fernandes and Pogba in the team and Rashford creating big chances too. All of the goals he scored were goals with low XG. Two ways of looking at that, of course. Either he got very lucky, or he's a very good player. And to be honest, I think it's probably more of the latter than it is the former. I think he, as you say, he's a young player. I believe that he's scored more goals in his first senior season at United than Rooney did. He scored more goals in his first senior season at United than Ronaldo did. So definitely a lot to like about him. Is it sustainable? I don't know. But bottom line is, if I want a United player early on, he's the one that kind of jeopardizes the balance of my team to the lesser degree. So that's why he's in at the moment.
Yeah, and obviously the way you've kind of set up is that you've got Souček in there as well, who's obviously got a good fixture for game week 1, is a good option at 5 million. Is he going to be your eighth attacker that basically gets benched every week? And secondly, do you think spending that extra 0.5 million might hurt you later on? Because obviously a lot of people will put 4.5 million midfielders on the bench. Do you think he could hurt you?
Yeah, I mean, it could well do. I mean, the reason he's there at the moment is because, I mean, I do really like Souček. I think he is going to have a good season. I think, to be honest, I would be surprised if by the time we get to, is it like game week 6 or 7 when West Ham's fixtures really turn around? I think when we get to that point, I think he will have done well enough for people to look at him and think he can be a fourth midfielder because he's very busy in the box. Which is why I think, yeah, like he could be sat there on my bench for the first 6 or 7 game weeks after I play him in game week 1. And just annoy me every week with getting goals against anybody. We've done some research into him as well on the site. If you want to go and have a read of an article, I think he was second or third best for penalty box touches for West Ham during Project Restart. It was just Bowen and Antonio in there more often than him. So the fact that he's a defensive midfielder doesn't really worry me too much. And the reason why the Newcastle fixture is so good is because most of what Souček does is headers, and Newcastle's still not particularly good at defending from set pieces. I could start him in game week 5, to be perfectly honest, because Spurs haven't really defended well from set pieces either. So I think he's probably going to give me a benching headache more often than I suspect, which is possibly annoying. But if he helps me get me going in game week 1, then I'm kind of happy with it. Will the 0.5 punish me? I don't know. I'm obviously going to be downgrading from Aubameyang to hopefully downgrading from Aubameyang to a Man City player in game week 3. Souček could be someone I look to kind of maybe put him into a more convenient price point. There's players in the forward line I might do the same with as well. So the lineup as it currently is obviously subject to change, as most people will say with this. But not only am I looking at how I can get to a Man City player, I'm already I've got a few players penciled in for who could then change as well. This is really a team for the first 2, maybe 3 game weeks, rather than say the first 6 or 7, which is slightly different to usual season because we've got that blank to consider.
Yeah, exactly. And that has kind of changed absolutely everything, to be fair. I did say we are going to talk about defence. I'm going to leave that to the end, actually, because I thought of some more questions, actually, for the midfield. So I have this feeling that you can tell me what I'm missing, right? But I feel like a lot of people have got Ziyech in their drafts. And I think Chelsea's fixtures are very good. Not Liverpool, maybe, but outside of that, they're very good to start the season. They're quite exciting as well because they've signed so many players and they were really good last year, so expect them to be even better this year. But I feel like he's in a lot of people's teams because around 8 million, there's hardly any options. And I feel like people have got 8 million to spend, so they're spending it. So, for example, you could we'll talk about Kane in a sec, but you could drop Kane to any other 9.5 or less player and go to Son, for example, instead of Ziyech. What do you think about him in general? Is it a case that there's just not enough players around the 8 million mark and you've got 8 million to spend, or do you think he's a really good option for that price?
No, it's a good point. I mean, I think we have to be considering whether or not we're going to take a player-based approach to a price point perspective, as Joe's very keen on. I think that's a big debate in the fantasy community generally right now. I try to go towards the price points more often than not, but every now and then I kind of have some exceptions to it, and I think Ziyech is one of them. I must admit the reason he's in the team is because I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm covering Chelsea here, but I wanted Werner. I think it was Werner and at the time it was Werner and Rashford versus Ziyech and Martial. That was pre-fixtures. Then the fixtures came out, and I wanted Kane. And I realized that because I don't want Son. So again, this is something else we've discussed quite a lot on site recently. I've done an article recently, so search for that on the site if you can find it. And also we've got Will or Top Marks doing something on that as well. The debate between those two players coming in the next few days. The thing with those two players is out of those two, I want Kane because he, in Project Restart, he had more penalty box touches than Son. He shot in the box more often than Son. They actually created the same number of big chances between them. And then because Kane shoots on target more often, I actually think the two players out of Son and Kane actually have the same assist potential because I think Kane can get fantasy assists more often than Son can. Even though Son's taking the corners, his delivery is not great. So and also Kane takes the penalty. So I don't want Son. I know he's like a big name that everyone's talking about. People think that maybe 9 million is he's undervalued. I kind of feel like it's just about right. And Ziyech plus 1 million to me, Ziyech, Kane plus 1 million is better than having Son, in my opinion. So the reason that Ziyech is there is so I can have Kane instead of Werner. So, but then let's move on to why I think Ziyech is a good player. 8 million, I think he is going to rise very, very quickly because I think he is exactly the kind of player that Chelsea have been missing. He's exactly what they've needed. They haven't had a quality creative player for I don't know, well, since Hazard, really, I suppose. Willian creates a lot of chances, but are they high quality? Were they high quality? Not really. That's something that Zofar particularly has been talking about when he's been discussing Ziyech. He did the scout report on Ziyech for us on the website, so read that for a bit more information. And what I like about Ziyech is not only does he create a lot of chances and they're high quality as well, he shoots so much, and a lot of it's going to be from outside the box, yes, but he kind of has the potential to be a bit of a Bruno Fernandes or, dare I say it, a Kevin De Bruyne, in that when he does shoot from outside the box, it is often quite accurate. So I think we're going to see a season where he's going to have maybe 10 goals, 15 assists, something like that. And for 8 million, that's incredible. And then just to compare him again with Werner, I think Werner's going to have a very good season. Like I said, he was in my early drafts. But Ziyech obviously has the kind of higher points potential because you get more points for the goals. I think he's going to get more assists than Werner. And of course, if Chelsea can get themselves a nice goalkeeper and, they've made these defensive improvements, there's that extra 1 point for Ziyech on the clean sheets as well. So I kind of feel like if Ziyech starts well and Chelsea's fixtures are decent for the rest of the season, and as you said, the team's XG last season was great anyway, Ziyech could be a guy I hold all season just because his starting price is so good.
Wow, okay, that's a good argument. I mean, literally, Kane and Ziyech are exactly the same price as Son and Werner. They're exactly the same price, 18.5 million. So I've got the other one because I just feel like Werner's going to hit the ground running. I think he's going to be the one that's going to get the goals in that team, which is why I want him. So I've kind of gone for Son instead. How much? So I agree. Like I can't really argue that for Project Restart at least. So since game week 30 to 38 basically, Kane did perform better. How much of your thinking with this team is based on that period? Because yes, obviously a lot changed. They had a long break. It's very recent as well. Usually it's not such a quick turnaround to the next season. But there was a whole another 29 games that happened last season where players like Son did perform well. Calvert-Lewin, for example, is another one that was awful post-restart but was great before that. How much of your team and thinking is based on game week 30 to 38?
So admittedly, quite a lot. Now, it's a good question, actually. I think it's something that we haven't really touched on too much yet. And I think it's a good question. I think I already have an answer for it, though. I hope. Hopefully it satisfies people. I normally, when I'm picking my team for the start of a new season, I will normally look at the last 10 or 11, maybe 12 at a push, last game weeks of the previous season, because in my opinion, that is going to be more focused and more relevant than necessarily looking at the whole season. Now, of course, there are pros and cons of that approach. With the pros, with looking at the whole season, the pros of that, of course, is that you kind of iron out any kinks in the fixtures or the form or any injuries or stuff like that. So I'm not saying that's a bad approach to take. But obviously, there's all sorts of other things in terms of the way teams are playing, the formations, what the manager is. So I think with Spurs, I'm more comfortable looking at Project Restart than normal because Mourinho, he's a manager who likes to have effectively a pre-season. He never had that initially at Spurs. Kane was injured for a large portion of Mourinho's period initially at the club. So then Son was playing up front. So I will certainly say that one of the main reasons Son did so well last season was because he overall and before Project Restart was because he's playing up front. He's not going to play up front with Kane back. So that's a massive detraction for him. And what we saw under Mourinho in Project Restart was that Son was just basically like running the touchline, chalk on his boots every game. So he's really, really far wide. So I'm with Spurs, especially, I'm quite happy to look at Project Restart and give that period of data considerably more weighting compared to the rest of the season. But then generally for every team, like I said, I usually like to look at the end of a season anyway. Like you said, the gap between the end of last season and this one is smaller. So I think the form will carry over more easily. I think at the start of this season, obviously, we're still not going to have fans in the stadium. That clearly had an impact on a fair number of players. To use an arbitrary example, he's not really relevant for my team, but Jack Grealish, he's a fantastic player who seems to thrive off the X factor of having the crowd there and they get behind him and he wants to dazzle for them. When they weren't there, arguably he was half the player, and rather than him carrying Aston Villa, a lot of the other players stepped up and kind of carried him. So the lack of fans is a factor that we have to consider for the start of this new season. And what's the only period we have to assess what teams were like when there were no fans? Is Project Restart. So I think this season more than ever, I think we have to look at that period because, and even from a mental perspective outside of football, I mean, like a global pandemic, we haven't had one of those in the Western world for 100 years. So like, everybody's mindset and everybody's kind of like way of life is just completely different. So yeah, I think you just have to. I think you have to take that period of games, and it's very hard to say that is, I guess, less useful or maybe than a period of time when we had fans. Nobody was worried about COVID, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think, with Son, it's like, it's an interesting one. I do get the point, and I obviously saw it with my own eyes and stuff. I just feel like he's such a good player. There's no way he's gonna keep performing like that, and he will step up. But it's a pretty good argument you've made. Let's talk instead about the elephant in the room, which is the rest of your forward line outside of Kane. Bamford. So I know a guy called David who writes for Fantasy Football Scout telling me he's gets a lot of chances, but he also likes to miss a lot of those chances. Obviously, he's cheap, so he's 5.5 million, and with the rest of the setup, maybe that's the easiest way in. But surely you must be looking at how you can get cash to upgrade him.
Oh, yeah, hugely. I mean, like I said, firstly, with all these videos, they are subject to change. But even if I was to go into game week 1 with Bamford, again, he's certainly subject to change as well. The reason I went with him is because that was the last slot I needed to fill. And I couldn't really find 0.5 anywhere else because I'm sort of tempted by Adams. I don't know if I would necessarily go with him. If I can find 0.5, I'd rather have Shea Adams than Patrick Bamford, definitely. But at the moment, I don't have 0.5, so we'll see. But in the 0.5 bracket for strikers, it is really just absolutely rubbish with some of the options that are there. Most of them aren't even necessarily assured starters. So Connolly, not a sure starter. Benteke, neither is he. Bobby Reed, Divock Origi, Andy Carroll, David McGoldrick, Callum Robinson, Shane Long, Hal Robson-Kanu, Charlie Austin. Like, these are all players who aren't going to play, probably, or they might, but you have no idea. Bamford will play. And as you say,
they've just signed Rodrigo, haven't they? So will he definitely play? That's the question. Well, I mean, we did a video on Leeds, and Seb did say he thinks whoever, if they sign a new striker, which he thought they probably would, it would take time for him to be almost allowed to play under Bielsa because he wants them to play the way he wants them to play, etc. So he still thinks Bamford will start the season, and he may even continue to do so. But would you not be thinking here switching to 3-5-2 because 5.5 million up front is pretty awful all round as it stands right now, and it's not like the 5.5 million midfielders are going to score massive points, but surely like St. Maximin or Armstrong or someone like that might be a better option, do you think?
Yeah, I'm certainly thinking about changing the system. I think the answer to the question, would I do 3-5-2? I guess because my team is very much focused on the first 3 game weeks, if I go 3-5-2, then it means probably, and going for a team that's all going to start, then it means not having Greenwood. And then I'm asking myself that question, how do I get in on United, as well as also getting in on Man City as well? So I might do that, but one of the reasons why I haven't done it for this particular draft is because, like I said, I do just want to be in on United. I have actually considered going 4-4-2, to be perfectly honest, which would then mean, maybe I can downgrade Bamford and look at someone just like 4.5 and then upgrade somewhere else. But I don't know. I'm still not that sold on too many of the cheaper options. One thing I should say actually is I've got Saliba at Arsenal very much in my thinking. I think Arsenal's defense could be quite good this year. If not at the beginning, across the whole season, I think they'll impress people. So to get a 4.5 Arsenal defender in there, I mean, again, he's someone who might not necessarily start. That's why he's not in my draft at the moment. Maybe I could pull him in and go for a 4-4-2. So, like I said, Bamford really is not locked in at all. But if I had to go in with a 5.5 million striker, I think he's the best of what's available. Because as you say, what we're seeing from anyone who's sort of like watched Leeds over the last few years under Bielsa is he's very fiercely loyal to his players. I'd be very surprised if Bamford didn't start at least the first 2 games. I don't know. I'm probably going to start spouting heresy at this point, but Liverpool away actually is probably not as hard a fixture as it used to be, and I'm sure everybody's sharpening their pitchforks now.
I am. There's no I know like Liverpool's defense.
But Norwich last year, Norwich scored against them last year. I know it was Adrian, but Liverpool's defense has not been good in pre-season. Liverpool's defense was not good in Project Restart. Yes, they just won the league, but I don't know. They're not a bad defense. They're just not as good as they used to be, which is why I've only got one Liverpool defender. So I don't know. Like I said, it's early days. I probably won't go Bamford, but if I had to go Bamford for the first two, I wouldn't be shocked if he nicked something at Anfield, and then of course it's Fulham at home in game week 2. So a Leeds attacker initially, and then maybe when I start playing around with getting Aubameyang into De Bruyne, I've got 0.5 to spend. Maybe that's when I can upgrade Bamford. So when I said I've got players who are penciled in to be upgraded by the Aubameyang to De Bruyne or Sterling swap, Souček is one of them, and Bamford is the other.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I don't think you can go into game week 1 with Bamford, but that's just me. I'm going to get lynched because what I found this season is there's a lot of Leeds fans out there, and every time you say something bad about Leeds, I get a lot of tweets. But yeah, I don't know. I want to see him play first. Plus, the fixtures are awful for Leeds. I know people think they're going to do well this year, but if any player had those kind of fixtures, I wouldn't be looking at them. I quite like Antonio, even though the fixtures are poor. Obviously, we've seen him do it quite a lot in the Prem. And you got Struijk as well on the bench. I think someone else had him. But he's not guaranteed to start, is he?
Well, yeah, not really. I think so. The reason he's there is because if they can get Ben White back, who everybody will tell you if they've watched any football for Leeds of last season, he was just incredible, imperious centre back. If they can't get him back, which is possible because it already sounds like Potter at Brighton is talking about him competing for a place in the Brighton team this year. Then it kind of sounds like he would be one of the ones who would step in. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. He's not necessarily guaranteed. If I need another 4 million defender, because I've already got Mitchell, who's the new Ferguson, obviously, in light of that injury, then I could look at Ben Johnson at West Ham, but I just need more information. So that particular slot, it's early days, we'll have to see. When Leeds start playing their preseason games, I'll get a better idea. And of course, hopefully we get something a bit more concrete on the Ben White saga, but I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against a Leeds defender at like 4.5 because I think they rotate quite well with other options. Like I think they could rotate quite well with Vinagre. So obviously not wanting to play him week in, week out, but it could be an option. I think 4 million defenders, look, whether Mitchell, Ferguson or Johnson becomes an option or not, doesn't necessarily matter. You can always have a 4 million non-playing player. Of course, lots of kind of COVID news about players, going away and maybe having to quarantine now. So we might have to think about that this year. That might be something we have to think about. So non-playing players might hurt us a bit, but hopefully when they're back and being controlled more by the club and having to play week in, week out, less of that will happen. Like we saw in lockdown, we had 8 game weeks and we didn't have anything really that kind of disrupted us. So I'd hope that'd be the case. Let's talk quickly about the defence before we shoot off. I mean, we don't really need to talk about Vinagre and Trent because a lot of people have them for good reasons. Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about 2 others then. Ryan, 1, do you think he's the best 4.5 million keeper? And 2, Ben Davis. How much of that is after watching Zofar's video?
I'll go with the goalkeepers first. I'm undecided on the goalkeepers. I think in the 4.5s, it's either Ryan or McCarthy. I should just say I came in very strongly in favour of Pope initially, and if Burnley played game week 1, I'd have him. Because I think, and if he was still a Burnley player, because at Chelsea he offers us value because I'll concede fewer shots. For me, Pope is the best 5.5 goalkeeper we'll ever have, because for a 5.5, usually they're at a club that concedes not very many shots, so you don't get many saves, you just get clean sheets. He gets everything, but because they got a blank, I can't justify having a 5.5 million goalkeeper who doesn't play game week 1, because it then means my other goalkeeper's got to be probably a 4.5 as well, and it's just too much. So that's why I'm now on Ryan and McCarthy. I think Ryan made more saves and got more clean sheets than McCarthy last year, but McCarthy, because he didn't play the whole season, had a better clean sheets and saves per 90 than Ryan. I think I generally prefer Brighton's earlier fixtures, even though I know they're playing Chelsea up first. I think that's saves galore for him there. So I'm undecided. I need to do a little bit more research. And actually, to be honest, it probably also depends on the Ben White saga as well. If we know that Ben White's going to play a lot this season, I think that's good for them because I think he's a good defender. Southampton, I think they can keep clean sheets, but I guess I'm a little bit stung by the fact that in the past they've been a bit unreliable. So I'll probably go with Ryan, but I'm still considering McCarthy. Then as for Davis, I'll admit I'm sorry. It's not because I watched the Zofar video. Although of course the Zofar video was great, very insightful. I've had Davis kind of on my mind for a little while. He was a big guy for me. What, maybe 2 years? Was it 2 or 3 years ago? I think it was like
16, 17 or 17, 18. Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah, when he was great. He was so good. Spurs were keeping clean sheets. He was getting forward. For me, he's less of a liability than Aurier. He's more prepared to kind of take up a balanced position where he's got the ability to track back and save the day when they get counted on, but is still far forward enough to get involved. His crossing ability from deep is actually quite nice if he gets the opportunity to do it. And the reason he did so well back then was because he was getting a load of assists for Kane goals. So I do quite like him. It's his price more than anything that attracts me to him, because obviously he's going to be cheaper than Aurier and cheaper than potentially Doherty as well. So I mean, Spurs defense, I still don't know if I can trust them. Sam's done a nice article on it about how through each part of the season, Spurs defense got slowly better because it was quite poor under Pochettino. Then it was slightly better, but still quite rubbish under Mourinho at first. But once he'd had that opportunity to work with players, as we talked earlier about having that little pre-season in lockdown, they got a little bit more settled at the back. That could help them. And of course, their fixtures are nice as well. If we're talking about where can I find 0.5, Davis is admittedly somewhere I'm looking at, because initially in a lot of my drafts, it was just, as we'd all said, it was Alexander-Arnold and a bunch of 4-5s and 4-0s. Because, of course, Spurs do have to play in the Europa League. So I think, I'm trying to think when we get the first Spurs Europa League fixture, but obviously Rose is still there. If we kind of get an inkling that Rose is the Europa League left back and Davis is the Premier League one, which hopefully is likely, then he's a lot more likely to stay. But if I'm starting to kind of get an inkling that Davis is going to play in some of those Europa League games, then it maybe puts me off, and maybe I'll go for some of my 4-5s on my list, like Saliba, a few of the other ones as well. So yeah, I like Davis, but his price is, means he's not, like ready to go, but he's certainly on my maybes if I need to tweak things.
Yeah, I quite like that option of Spurs first, mostly because of the fixtures. I also think for 5 million, Saiss is potentially an option too if Doherty goes, which it looks like he's going to. All right, cool. We'll leave it there mostly because I think you need some time to go and work on this team, like Bamford, Sturrock. So
I'm pretty sure he gave me a D- the last time we did one of these. So
yeah, no, this is a lot better. I know we haven't covered Salah or Aubameyang, but I think at this point people know why they're in the team. Yeah, downgrade to Man City mid, etc. for Aubameyang, and Salah is just Salah. So there we go. If you did enjoy it, make sure to give it a like. We've got plenty more of these videos to come, as well as other non-draft videos too. So give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're new around here. There's content pretty much every day up until the season starts, and then throughout the season as well. And just quickly before we shoot off, I'll do a quick members shout out. So if you have not already signed up to be a Fantasy Football Scout Premium member, this video will probably go out on Sunday. So before September 1st, so basically by August 31st, it's £17.50 to sign up for the whole year for 12 months. And on September 1st, that goes up to $19.99. So if you want to do it, if you want to get access to everything you see on the screen, make sure you click that link in the description below. That'll take you through, and then you can sign up for the slightly cheaper price and get all the benefits, which are, there's loads. I'm not even going to go through them all. There's so many you can see on screen. But yeah, we'll leave that video there. Thanks very much for joining me, David. That was really good.
Yeah, cheers for having me, Andy.
And yeah, thanks very much everyone for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers all.